Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's a refrain that's uttered around here quite a bit, but physical media for life. And if you're within the sound of my voice, then you must be in the seats with once again. As always, my name is Dave Voigt. I am your host for this podcast where we talk to a wide array of entertainment industry professionals, not only to talk about current projects, but we talk state of the industry, trends, patterns, things that are going on, and all the good things under the sun. And don't forget that you can find this podcast, along with many others, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify Podcasts, or you can find it all archived over on YouTube at our In the Seats YouTube channel. And as always, please don't forget to visit us at intheseats.ca for your latest and greatest movie news, reviews, festival coverage, and all that fun stuff. On today's episode, we are talking with Sean Breen, the Director of Sales over at Unobstructed View, and he also serves in a similar capacity over at Raven Manor Films. And we're talking about DVDs, we're talking about Blu-rays, we're talking about what we love, we're talking about the state of the industry, we're talking about what units move, what units don't move. It's a great little talk, and Sean is a really fascinating guy who's got a breadth of experience sort of in the physical media realm, and just gives some great insight on not only how it's going to survive, but how it's going to thrive, because that's the way it's got to be, at least for a lot of us collectors out there. But I hope you enjoy my talk with him, and that's it, and we'll catch you next time. Enjoy. And just before I forget, don't forget, I just want to apologize, actually, that the audio on my end of the mic on this conversation is a little hot, and Sean is a little quiet. We did the best to even it out, but just be forewarned. All right, bye.
All right, well, anyway, first off, I just want to say thank you for the time today. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No problem.
Now, obviously right now you're working at, I guess, our favorite independent retailer right now, Unobstructed View, but you've been working in the business, especially the home entertainment side of the business, for quite some time. Can you give us a little bit of background just in terms of how you got started and how you sort of led up to this point?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I started when I started. I was a I still am a carpenter, but I used to build video stores.
Oh wow! Okay.
Way back when VHSs were $120 a piece, and you would
the good old days.
Rent them and reserve them. Yeah, so I was building video stores. Met a couple guys who worked at the first incarnation of E1, which was Video One.
Yeah.
And I was a bit quiet, and they asked me if I wanted to come work part-time at Christmas, doing customer service. I thought,
right.
So I did, and then I never left. And that was, God, I don't even know, like in the 90s sometimes. So I ran through with Video One, and then I left there to go over to Video Flicks. I don't know if you remember those guys.
I do, absolutely.
Michael and Steve and those guys with their website, with videoflix.com, and we were doing stuff online when nobody was doing stuff online. And then I got poached from there to go start the visual department at EMI Capitol Records.
Okay.
Bunch of live music things coming out. So I got to work, release Beatles and David Gilmour and Coldplay and Iron Maiden, and
that's cool.
Yeah, so we did good business there. So I went from there because I bounce around a lot. I went from there back over to SMA Vid Canada, which then became Paradox Entertainment Group, which then was absorbed by E1 Films, and spent 10 years there, I think, with those guys, E1. And then the way the business has been going, it kind of made sense for me to sort of move off for a little while and jump back in with the Raven Banner guys and with John, and kind of doing sort of the independent thing now.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting because I mean, given what's been happening with the pandemic and everything, there are no sort of tentpole studio releases, especially from a home entertainment standpoint. The major guys aren't releasing the titles that would fill the shelves just because they haven't played theatrically. But conversely, the smaller labels like the Criterions, the Shouts, the Kinos are really kind of stepping up their game. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, from your perspective, have you ever seen this kind of a shift in terms of the smaller labels really sort of stepping up their game in terms of the product that they're releasing?
Not as much. Like there's always been like a strong independent film business there, but you're right. When you have a cool little film but it's standing in the shadows of Superman or Spider-Man or Batman, you don't get noticed. So the smaller films are kind of pushing to the foreground now, which is great. And not even just smaller films. Like if you look at in November, Criterion has The Irishman coming out.
That's right, yeah.
And it's a Criterion film, and Criterion's is releasing it the way Criterion releases films, which is great. But if that film was with Warner, it would probably be in cardboard displayers in every Walmart. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
I think that film is that strong. Like it's a Scorsese film. but I like that Criterion is handling it the way they are, because it gives the film a lot of credit on the artistic part. Plus, it did do its Netflix run as well, which was, the equivalent of a full theatrical release as well. Do you mind holding a second? It's got to let my dog in.
No problem.
Sorry, man. He's barking. I don't want him to bark the whole time. They're talking. Come on, guys. But it's I mean, it's a real good time now for independent film to take the torch and sort of run. It's also a good time for classic film. I find with myself, I'm going back and revisiting films from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Guys are putting them out, like the Friday the 13th box.
Right, yeah.
Like that's pretty crazy stuff, right? And normally you wouldn't get an opportunity to sell. Like it's pretty much sold out nationally now. That you wouldn't get an opportunity to get a lot of shelf space for that. So it's great that people are finding it and it's being focused on, because it deserves it. You get all the Jason films, all remastered, tons of bonus footage, stuff that they found. Like there's I haven't read the whole article yet, but they found like an old videotape of some special effects that were buried in the back room of a special effects house that was for the first film.
That's right, yeah.
The gore wasn't used on, and they got to put that on this thing for the fans. So, and I have to say that I think I'm up to number 8 or 9 now. Watch it back through. I'm back in number 9. Kate Hodder's there, so that's always cool. And I'm just waiting to watch. I'm sort of saving Jason Goes to Space for my big guilty pleasure, because it's definitely the worst one, but the most fun one.
Oh, totally. No, I'm with you on that one. And I mean, it's just, especially with so many of the releases right now, and just the labels that are putting them out, you can feel the care that gets put into so many of these different releases. Like the Parasite site is great. The Friday the 13th, obviously. Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. I'm kind of curious, how do you see sort of that level of caring having to sort of filter down to the distributor and to the retailer? Because it feels like it still needs to be there. And I mean, at least from you guys at Unobstructed, it definitely does feel there through all the headaches and problems that have been with the website and everything that's going on. There is a level of caring in terms of getting the product out to the people at a good price.
Yeah, the problem is, David, is there is a problem with price. So we run up against that all the time. Being Canadian, we have to deal with the exchange rate.
Of course, yeah.
Is always horrific. And then you always got to deal with shipping. So we got to ship this product to people. We might be shipping, we could be shipping to Mississauga, but we might be shipping to Thunder Bay or,
Yeah.
the Yukon somewhere. That'll always be a problem. We can't fix those prices. But what happens, and I do notice this a lot, even especially when I'm dealing with the Raven banner. I don't want to go. I'm just kind of bouncing back and forth between Raven banner and Unobstructed. With Raven banner, we replicate it and manufacture. We build our own masters. We do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
People that with the biggest chunk that we have right now is licensing fees and creating the masters. They're one-time fees, granted, but it adds a couple bucks to each Blu-ray because we're only going to sell so many.
No, exactly.
That cost just keeps rolling down the hill. But when you're looking at a company like Shout, maybe not so much Shout, because Shout has their fingers in a lot of different pies. But when you look at, like Vinegar Syndrome,
Oh, yeah.
Synapse, Blue Underground, guys like that, where they're creating these crazy special editions from scratch. Like there's a lot of money, you got it right now during the pandemic. You probably can't really do it, but these guys would get on airplanes with 2-3 guys and fly out, to interview some obscure French director in France, and they're here now. That this 20-minute vignette on their Blu-ray just cost them $10,000.
Yeah.
But they love doing it. That's what the fans want, so the fan, they can pay a little bit extra because they know that they're getting this stuff that, they're not going to get it anywhere else.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I'm so glad you brought up Synapse because I got to do an interview with the director of Suckers, which they just released a couple of months back. And I mean, literally, the director had to find, the negatives and the prints that were, almost being sent out to the dumpster. And I mean, that there are people out there don't necessarily understand how many films are in, holding companies that were owned by somebody else and that are just sitting there and the rights are in limbo. It's such a fascinating little beast, and it's not cheap to dig a lot of this stuff out.
Oh, well, no, not at all. Like the film that opened my eyes to that was because I was at EMI, and Thorn EMI was a British video label at one time. And they had Convoy, and I was like, I want Convoy. It was buried in like literally what you said, in a bank vault in England. That's where that print was, because Thorn EMI, I guess when Thorn and EMI split, Thorn went bankrupt, and this bank bought their holdings, and that film was in the holdings. And this was 20-something years ago, but now it's out, of course. But everything finds its way out eventually. But I think what the guys at Synapse and Vinegar Syndrome and places like that are good at are finding those prints that still have that 2 minutes that wasn't available somewhere else, because like some of these prints get edited at the theater by the projectionists. So
for sure, yeah.
So they're good at finding that kind of stuff, and they're there's always, I know with Jerry at Synapse, he loves a story, so they find stuff in the weirdest places, but that's part of the lure of the biz for those guys. I know Don loves that. And their new release that they have out, The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue, is brilliant. Special features are great. The print is gorgeous. They did a nice tin on it. In little lobby cards and stuff. I just watched it the other day, and it's been years since I've seen that film, so it was nice to revisit, that English sensibility of a zombie film.
For sure.
Completely different than the American versions, but yeah, it's orange blood and lots of things being stuck in eyes. And
well, and I mean, and that's the other thing that I love about these smaller labels, because like we've said, there's care put into these releases, but also at the same time, I think it's important from a consumer level to remember that, even though they're not being advertised as, sometimes they get advertised as limited edition, but sometimes they're not. But at the same time, if something doesn't sell very well, then it turns into a limited edition. You know what I mean? It's like, if you want something, you got to go get it right away.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I did a film recently, released a film recently for Raven Banner. You can get it. It's up on the Unobstructed View site. It's called Dead Dicks.
Oh yeah.
It won the Canadian Film Audience Award at Fantasia last year.
It's a great film.
Yeah, it's a cool little film, and because it's a cool film and it needs that it needs that bit of sexiness, we did a limited edition O card. We got some custom art made. We did mini poster, soundtrack, tons of bonus features, but only on the Canadian release. The American release got a bunch of the bonus features that we had built, but they weren't as proactive as we were. So what we're finding is we, especially for a Canadian filmmaker, we really want to give that extra push. We have another title coming out. It's just a replication right now. I'm a little bit delayed, but it's called Zed, which is a Canadian film as well. We're doing the same thing. We're going to do a mini poster. I had a guy named Ian Sheedy in the UK do like this really cool picture, like box art for it. And it's we load it up with as many things as we can, because we want to make sure that, one, if you're supporting a Canadian filmmaker in Canada, you're getting the best product you can get. And two, if it slips over the border, the American guys are getting something that's really cool as well that they might not get in the US.
For sure.
So that's, just to keep, and that's what we want to do with Mike's film as well, with Nail in the Coffin. We'll push that Canadian out there and support the Canadian filmmakers.
No, you have to. And I mean, and that kind of dovetails into my next question. I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, how does the Criterions and the Arrows of the world push the smaller guys like a Synapse or a Blue Underground, or even somebody like a Raven Manor, when it comes to sort of plotting their releases and their release schedules?
What do you mean by push?
Well, in terms of just adding content and just trying to make it as unique as possible.
Oh yeah, they definitely, I have to say, Arrow to me is like, Shout is great, but Arrow is like what Criterion is to high-end films, Arrow is to
genre,
my type of films.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to me, it's, even if I haven't heard of a film, if Arrow's picked it up, then I want to see it. And they got, I've noticed they're picking up some stuff too that is like newer and a different sort of edge for them, which is great. Like The Deeper You Dig is a new film from them, which is really cool, small, independent, psychological thriller.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great little movie. And then they had the other one that was at Fantasia last year, Why Don't You Just Die? Which to me is, it almost felt to me like Evil Dead 2. Like that's like, this is amazing. Like it's, and that I kind of like, I brought it sort of along the same lines as Dead Dicks, where it's like one room and everything happens in that room, like Evil Dead 2. It's just, it's just chaos. And I know a lot of people were like, the beginning was boring. Well, the beginning was boring because it's setting you up to be kicked in the balls in the mid part, man, when it goes crazy. And if you don't stick with it, you don't get that payoff.
No, exactly.
Sometimes you got to pay for the fun, right? So, but Arrow definitely, they're definitely pushing. They're leading for sure. They're leading with ultra high def. They lead with packaging. They lead with the type of films they acquire. And I say they have to work really hard to turn a profit. Like they put a lot of money and effort into these releases, and it shows. And luckily now, with the way the market is, the economy is, and the fact that the majors aren't punching stuff out like you said earlier, guys like Arrow get to take advantage of that. And now they can they can turn some profit, and they can acquire bigger and better projects going down the road. And they got a couple big ones coming in the new year, which I can't talk about, but you're going to be surprised. Like, these guys they're not going anywhere, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, there's a couple that's been announced. I mean, with stuff like Tremors and stuff like Southland Tales, that'll definitely sort of draw in eyes. But at the same time, it does show that there's an audience for Jesus Shows You the Way to the Highway, because that was never going to Netflix. That was never going to get sort of buried in some sort of generic content package. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that and the other one, Lake Michigan Monster.
Yeah.
That's they'll get some play out of it down the road on digital and stuff like that. But no, it's definitely, a fan based product, and it's good that they're out there picking that up and putting it out.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I mean, I guess my next question for you is because, I mean, especially when you'll see the trades and you'll see some of the bigger articles, there will be sort of people bemoaning the death of disc or the death of physical media. And I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, how has the business evolved? Because at least right now, for at least the way I'm looking at it, DVD and Blu-ray are a couple of years away from being like vinyl. It's not going to go away, but it's just going to get more and more and more niche as more and more options come out there for people to sort of get access to their films.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's me personally, my thoughts, which that and a dime and you could get a coffee kind of a thing. But
right.
I think there will always be a collectible market.
Yeah.
Like, you'll always have that. So it comes down to, how do you make that work? Like, okay, so the next Scooby-Doo movie's not going to be on ultra high def.
Yeah.
But they have to put out, an Avengers or whatever for mass appeal. But as far as like, we're like what we're talking about now, there'll always be a collectible market. So there'll always be people who want to have, this slip sleeve, or, the latest edition of Nightmare on Elm Street, or whatever it may be. They'll always be there. It's just, how do you get that product into those people's hands and still make it affordable? Like,
yeah.
If you're only selling 10,000 of them, how do you make that a business and not a charity?
No, and it's finding the balance too, because there's going to be some who will want, the Herschel Gordon Lewis movies on 4K, and I mean, that's not happening anytime soon,
No, it's an expensive adventure, yeah. And that's the same thing. It's like I was saying to you earlier, with upgrading from DVD to Blu-ray. With Blu-ray, you have to pay the licensing fees. So
yeah,
costs go up. So now you're looking at it going, well, am I going to sell enough to pay for the shipping, the manufacturing, the royalties, the licensing, and it's there's lots of stuff there that has to be paid. But at the end of the day, people still want something on a shelf.
Yeah.
I do shows, sell, like, do the conventions and have a table and sell.
Back when we did those sort of things, right?
Yeah, this year's been a bit tight, kind of hurt the wallet a little bit. But there's guys I travel a lot with, Lewis from Suspect.
Right. Yeah.
Lewis and I are kind of traveling partners, and Lewis is selling VHS, and I was like, dude, who's buying VHS? And he goes, people buy VHS still. I said, I couldn't believe it, but people were buying VHS. And at the end of the day, it's about the packaging.
Yeah.
So the film is one thing, but the packaging is something entirely. And Shout seems to get a good thing with that, with with action figures and stuff like that. And I know with Arrow, with their big cases, like I've watched people inspect them, and I'm like, hey, it's Hellraiser, just go watch it, and they're like looking at it for no defects. It's a whole collectability thing. There's a reason why Criterion puts numbers on the spines of their Blu-rays.
But
So
no, it's true.
yes, because people want they're like, maybe I don't want that film, but I don't want to be missing number 68. I want, and I think we'll always have that. We're collectors by condition, and I think that if you collect film, you're going to continue to collect film. If you collect vinyl, you're going to keep collecting vinyl. If you collect comic books, you're going to keep collecting comic books.
Yeah.
It might not be in the same volume, and there's going to be a lot of disposable stuff. Walmart's still going to have cardboard corrugates full of throwaway product, but there'll still be, a couple dozen guys out there selling collectible stuff for people who are passionate about the genre and the formats.
And I love how you brought up the packaging, because and I got to think just recently with something like Gamera, because
yeah.
I'm aware enough of the release patterns and everything to know that, okay, there's going to be, like, they're going to release a version that's not going to be this quite involved, and I can wait and not spend the $300 and just get the movies. But I love sort of the obsession over the slipcover, and the packaging is almost as big as the obsession over the movie itself, and that's always something that's fascinated me.
Me as well. I always thought there was a time when you, this is going to sound horrible when I say it, but when I was working at E1 and places like that, and I used to sell at Costco and Walmart and
Right.
and Rogers and Blocklight Guide, all these like big, huge accounts. And when a movie came out with a slip sleeve on it, it meant it was crap. No, it was. It was like a goofy kids movie or a really bad horror movie. And then it just kind of got it adopted itself to the majors. The majors started putting slip sleeves on everything. And then all of a sudden it fell into the collector's market.
Yeah.
And that's where it is now. Like you still see a lot of slip sleeves when you go out, but there's a specific, like when people are hunting for Shout Factory, or they're hunting for Vinegar Syndrome, they're hunting for those slip sleeves. And Arrow did a really good thing where they started bringing in really special artists to create these slip sleeves. Now you're not buying a movie, you're buying a piece of art. And it could be Gary Pullen doing Wolf Cop or something like that.
Right.
So a piece of Gary's art. It's not just a cover of a movie. And you can get, I've created a couple myself. You get very specific. You're like, I don't want quotes on it. I don't want this. I want the art. I just want a nice piece of art. And that's what people are collecting. So, at the end of the day, you're getting a nice piece of art for $20.
No, totally, yeah.
Or whatever, yeah. Or if it's limited and it's a one-time shot. That's what Shout only does 1 or 2 print runs of their Earl cards. So they build sort of a ravenous fan base, because people are.
Oh, there's a whole sub-market on the internet of people trading them and selling them. It's crazy.
It's nuts. And the other thing is, it's funny how O cards, slip sleeves, have sort of surpassed steel books. I remember before it was like it's a steel book. When I did Turbo Kid with Raven Banner,
Yeah.
we put that in a steel book, and people were like, "You're."
I have that steel book.
You have that one, yeah. And I said, "No, the film deserves a steel book," and that was our first real push for a Canadian director. And we sold a pile of those steel books. Now, granted, we might have sold a pile of them to people who didn't even know what Turbo Kid was. They just saw this beautiful steel book, but now they do know what Turbo Kid is. And Turbo Kid has become almost a cult sensation.
No, it really has.
And I think if we had just put that out in an Amray, a plain piece of plastic, I think it would have died on the vine on us, and which would have been a total shame because that film deserves everything it gets. Like it's just so ambitious, and it's got such a great charm that you can't help but to love the thing. So
Well, and that goes back to the care too that really needs to be at all levels in this business.
yeah, it's true. It's true. You're right. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, it's.
Now, I mean, I guess just to start putting a bow on all this, obviously it's the fourth quarter, which is always big in this business.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious through your history, and even you can even drop something that's maybe coming out this year. Has there ever been a title that you've seen that has gone, wow, they're releasing that? That's cool.
You know what? At the end of the day, not really. Like I've seen, I can't think of any. I've seen things on top of my head. I can't think of any, but I've seen some that have come out on special editions, and you're like, ooh, I think that thing needs a special edition. But yeah. I mean, I think everything should be available.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just trying to think. Like I can't think of anything that is they've put out that I can't believe they put out.
Let me flip that. Is there anything that hasn't been put out movie-wise that you're surprised no one's gotten yet?
I was just thinking about this the other day, and now I can't remember what that title was. Yeah, I can't remember. Because usually I'm always doing that, right? Like it's always, oh, this isn't out, that isn't out. There's a film that I've always loved, and there's two films that I've loved that I've never seen come out on like special edition Blu-rays or anything like that. One is Fright Night 2.
Oh yeah.
Which it's like, come on already, super hot female stripper vampires. Thing out there, man. And another film which always scared the crap out of me was called Dead and Buried.
Oh God, yeah, you're right.
I think it's been out on a special edition DVD, but I don't know if there is a Blu-ray or if Blu-ray's been discontinued. But yeah, just a really cool, creepy little, almost feels like a Stephen King sort of thing because it takes place along the coast. But yeah, it's like I was watching the other night, I was watching a bit of Fright Night. It's like, I really want to see Fright Night too. But when you think about it, like all those, because I'm an 80s kid, right?
Yeah.
All those films, like I can, at any time, like I can watch Near Dark. Like,
oh, totally. Yeah.
It's great. Or the other night, Phantasm, I'm having trouble right now finding Phantasm 2. I got Phantasm 1 and Phantasm 3, and I just can't seem to find Phantasm 2. Yeah, it's great. Like but when it comes around to Christmas time, comes around to Halloween, you kind of revisit a lot of these older films, and you can't help but to revisit Halloween.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So incredible. The other film that I really love that I haven't seen around in a long time is one called Trick or Treat. There's a couple different Trick or Treats, but this is the one with Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. Okay.
Skippy from what was Family Ties, when he's with the DJ and the rock star comes up.
Right.
Always a metal dude who like comes out of the dreams.
I forget his name, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, so that film I'd love to see, but yeah, I'd be really excited if somebody, sent me a link to Fright Night 2.
Well, and I love how these things will take on a second life of their own. I mean, because I know, it was Vinegar, I believe, who did the 4K limited run for Rad, and I hadn't heard of Rad until after that happened, and then I finally saw it. I was like, oh my God, I missed out.
Yeah, Rad's on. And if you watch what's his name, the comedian on Josh.
Right.
Josh is a huge Rad fan, so he's always doing Rad jokes and has the guys from Rad on the show. And they did a whole Rad skit one time, and I was like, out of his million viewers, probably 2% got the joke,
Yeah.
Rad, what the hell is rad? But yeah, now they are talking about doing a wider release on that.
Oh, fantastic.
So that would be, but maybe not quite as sexy as the first package they put out. But I mean, that's a great little, pop culture film. It really catches an era, and it's there's those times, where those films bring you back, I'm like that when I see Lost Boys.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Lost Boys, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Or Bill and Ted, it's like, I haven't watched the new Bill and Ted yet, but I think I'm going to.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you seen it?
I have. It's a lot of fun.
I wanted to go to theater and see it, but then it's like, it's too bad. So,
No, I know. But I guess just to put a bow on this, because you're a physical media guy, I'm a physical media guy. We all have shelves that are bursting with titles. If you had to pick a Desert Island sort of special edition that you couldn't live without, what would it be?
that I couldn't live without. If I had to spend the rest of my life with it, it would have to be Spinal Tap.
Perfect. Yeah.
I would have. There's a million horror films. Evil Dead 1, Army of Darkness. I'd have to have Texas Chainsaw. But if I had to watch the same movie every day, it would have to be Spinal Tap.
Well, that's a great answer. And you know what? Thank you for the time today. I appreciate it, man.
It's no problem. If you want to